Belichick, early 70s, and this 24-year-old is a hot babe on top of that. Now, I think that gives him the edge over every coach in terms of the intangibles.
It's going to be
While
used.
Dabo's looking up in the sky waiting for divine intervention, this guy's thinking as soon as this game's over, I'm getting laid by a 24-year-old hottie. Edge Belichick. And then you would have to say, whenever you did one of those things about who has the advantage, offense versus defense, you're going to see the coaching box. And what happens when Bill Belichick is going against Mario Cristobal at the University of Miami? I mean, who's going to have a giant – that would be like triple check marks. Enough to eclipse every other advantage that the Miami Hurricanes might have in that spot. I always go back to our good friend Al Bernstein and the word intriguing. I think this is a very intriguing proposition to see Belichick at North Carolina.
You bring up Cristobal because you're going to watch games and go, oh, sorry, Cristobal. Like, see him up against, and I can't stand Belichick, but you would think X's and O's wise. He's definitely not going to have a problem kneeling.
Yes. No, he wouldn't have been handing the ball off in that spot.
And he wouldn't have kicked that field goal. Remember, he's the one that went for it on 4th and 5 from his 20 because he did the math. Like, if he has Cam Ward, he's not kicking a field goal there.
No, nobody in their right mind is kicking a field goal there. It's insane.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
All right, very pleasant, good Monday morning. Appeal yourself off the mat Monday here on the Defo Show. We got a very dapper-looking Mike Lubie Lubitz. I'm Jeff DeForest, and I used to love doing Dolphins Crying Towel, Lubie, although it got a little old, didn't it? I mean, the whole Godfrey Lovejoy thing where we would play the violin music and the people would be set up to call in and go, you know what, everybody sucks and everybody's got to get fired. How many years have we been doing this same bullshit, though, Lubie? What do you think?
When the whole time we were together, they were never good.
A long and winding road. Wow, Lubie. Do we have to go back into the 70s? Last time we were able to rejoice about Dolphin football, I guess it wasn't too bad in the early 80s.
80s and
Danny Boy chucking a rock. We were always at least had a possibility of something happening there with Dan Marino at quarterback. Tua was on fire going into this game ever since he came back from the concussion. I mean, that guy was putting up remarkable numbers, and it shows you that numbers, Lubie, often lie. Because the team wasn't all that good, in spite of the fact that Tua Tagovailoa was Drew Brees-like with his statistical performance. And actually, what was weird about yesterday's 3-interception, 4-turnover performance what was that he had thrown about, I think, 200-plus passes without an interception. Is that right?
He had gone over 3 games without an interception.
3 games without a pick. Is that right? Because the number 200 was that. Oh, that might have been Justin Herbert. That was
no. He had hit like 200, but again remember over those 3 games he was throwing it a lot. That's why I say over 3 games because I think he had like a half where he didn't turn it over, and then 3 straight games. It was something like that. Like it was a really nice stretch where he had not had an interception, and I don't know if he even had a turnover.
He implied, and I don't know that this is reasonable because it's impossible to know what the hell was going on in the guy's head. And we know that a lot of fuzzy things might be going on into his head, even though he seems to be in full command of his capacities in spite of the numerous concussions that he has suffered over the last several years. And I root for this kid. I like Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know about you, Libby. Did you not become somewhat endeared to Tua Tagovailoa when he blew by us on that radio row right before he was drafted by the Dolphins? We all thought that they had failed to tank for Tua. Tua, his star kind of dimmed a little bit around draft day, or during that period of time between the end of the career that he had at Alabama and draft day. So he wasn't necessarily going to be the first guy taken, and we fell into Tua, and I didn't think it was such a bad thing. Did you?
No,
the thing that bothered me, well, wasn't so much is relatively small stature. And the fact that he doesn't run like Jalen Hurts or some of these other guys that are that size that can throw the ball a little bit also. Throws those darts. I mean, they're remarkable. And thank God for Chris Greer. Well, when did they pick up Jonnu Smith? He wasn't on the roster at the beginning of the season, was he?
Was he this whole year.
He's an acquisition?
This offseason, yeah. And they didn't use him fucking like a month and a half.
I don't remember. I guess he was buried like he was the week before we got to overtime. So I don't even know he was on the roster. That shows you how informed I am. Hey, why not listen to the Forest Show? The guy don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But we know this. It would be pretty easy to conduct these shows, would it not, Louie, if we were taking phone calls? And we do get feedback on the chat line and just have person after person say, yeah, these guys suck. Chris Greer's got to go. I'll let you carry the platform here on the show. Who has to go after this one? Who's thinking up the joint? McDaniel? Tua just got the 5-year extension or whatever that is for $200 million. The disappointing thing that makes this particularly catastrophic and just a colossal failure this year was the amount of money that they doled out, mostly to offensive players, but also to Jalen Ramsey. Now, I will say this. I think Ramsey plays his ass off.
Yeah, it's not right.
I have no problem with Jalen Ramsey being a highly paid defensive back. He was going to be highly paid. He has been for a long, long time, and I believe that that's well-deserved. Now, I don't mind seeing them pay Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and to a lesser extent Tua Tagovailoa the amount of money that they gave these guys because it's the going rate now in the NFL. The numbers are so far out of whack. Yep. They've gone up so exponentially high that when you give a guy $120 million, it's nothing. You're talking about a scrub in the NBA. You're talking about, the NHL hasn't quite caught up with these
they're still
stratospheric numbers, but they're getting there, right? Because goalies are getting $11 million a year. But in the NFL, I mean, this is, and we all know the story, although most of this money seems to be guaranteed now. So that whole argument about, well, you know what, he got $120 million, that's what it looks like on paper, but in all likelihood, he's going to make $8 that he's scheduled to make in the first year, and then they're going to cut the motherfucker. That's the way a lot of that went. But, I mean, it seemed, look, I feel like a fool, Lubie. What kind of fool am I? And if you're listening to me, and we also felt compelled to give out that tip horse at Oakland Park, I think that's a practice we ought to suspend. What do you think, Lubie? You look a little pale after considering getting a Terabella in the 8th race at Oakland Park. The derisive Mexican whistle is applicable there, man. That comes in. I texted the guy, Ted, that gave me the horse, lose my number. Looked more like Clarabella running. And that's kind of what was the story with the Dolphins yesterday, as they end up losing. And it troubles me to see that they're still in the hunt, Louis.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those fans. You know I hate this when fans used to call talk shows and say, well, why do we want to make the playoffs for? We're just going to lose anyway. I thought that was pathetic. I really did. But in this case, I mean, are they really in the hunt at 6-8? They have 3 games left. They could go 9-8. It's possible.
I mean, the Chargers give them life by losing. So they're 2 games back with 3 games to go. But, I mean, that's very hard to overcome, especially since look, the rest of the games, I guess, are all winnable. The Niners are a disaster, the Jets, the Browns. So fine, you win those 3 games, but like again, you can't beat good teams. So what's the point? And
remember 1-10 now? Is that just 2, or is that the Phins in their last 11?
Or it's
teams with winning records. I mean, that could be like 1 game above 500, and they
McDaniel against good teams, and then the Texans were struggling. And look, the Dolphins did everything wrong in that game and still were in it. Like they still were in it, even at the end. They still were in it. Like that shows you, it's like, oh my god, if they just fucking, they were so patient the last 3 games, and it's like, and that's what was so nice to see offensively is that Tua was taking what was there. He was checking it down. He wasn't taking weird chances. And I'd actually forgotten that they used to do that, and I had actually gotten used to him doing that, and then it just all came out. Yes, it was like, yes, you're playing a good defense. It's going to force you to be patient. Okay, so be fucking patient. And it was like he couldn't do it. He kept taking these chances. Look, and their offensive line was a disaster. It's already bad, and they're missing 3 starters. Or 3 tackle. I mean, they're on like their 3rd or 4th tackle. And Eichenberg, who's starting, is really like a 3rd string on most NFL teams. So, and you saw that yesterday. Like,
did you see Chuck Klingbeil on the sidelines there?
I don't know. They were on like 3rd and 4th string guys, and Eichenberg was their biggest issue.
Yeah,
and he's a starter. Like, look, there's only so much you can do with that offensive line. I get it, but the turnovers were all Tua. Like, it was just throws that it's like, dude, just eat it or throw it away or throw it earlier. Like this thing where he's throwing it late. You don't have Josh Allen's arm. Like you can't throw it late and still make the fucking pass.
A couple of those long ones looked like sacrifice flies, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a joke. It's like, well, because the thing for him is that he has to throw it early to a spot.
Yeah.
And then let a guy run to it. And he wasn't doing it. He was getting there late because his offensive line sucks. And he was just turning it over. And that's why they lost. It was literally Tua. The fumble fucking early on when how does he not feel that guy coming? And then the 3 interceptions. And even the late interception with Hill, it was like, look, that wasn't the most uncatchable ball. Hill actually did have his hands on it. Hill should have put it away. And he didn't. And then he didn't even fight the guy for it. So I put that on Hill as much as I put it on Tua. But it's like, dude, you have 1st and 10 after all this shit. You don't have to make that throw. And I get it. Even the announcer like that's where the ball to go. No, it isn't. They haven't completed a deep ball all fucking day. Like you didn't have to do a deep ball there. You had 1st and 10 from like the 20 something. You had a minute and 45. Like I think they had 2 timeouts at that point.
That's been Houston's MO too, Libby. I mean, all season long they've left teams in games.
Yeah, so
they're 9-5, and they're not nearly as imposing as they were a year ago, and they were a very exciting, electrifying team with C.J. Stroud. But what Houston football I've seen so far this year, that's a common practice on their part. I mean, look, you had multiple opportunities to bury the Dolphins in that one, and they're still sitting there with the Dolphins with a chance to tie it up with inside of 2 minutes to go, but with the majority of those 2 minutes still on the clock. So throwing the pick there was, as we say, somewhat catastrophic, and it was a combination. I don't know. You can point a finger at any one guy. You might look at Mike McDaniel. Is it McDaniel?
It's not McDaniel.
To what extent is he responsible for this mess that we're in right now?
I think he's more responsible than they're giving him credit. Like everyone is finally on the side that Greer has to go. Greer has to go. Adam Beasley, who's now with the National Outlet, used to cover the Dolphins, wrote an article about Greer. Dave Hyde openly wrote a thing, and in the headline on Twitter says Greer has to go. So they're finally saying Greer has to go. Okay, I don't see how you don't get rid of Greer. Thank hallelujah. After 15 fucking years and like 8 years as a horrendous GM. Okay. What's interesting to me is, and Perk wrote something, and so I'm going to try and get him on this week.
Yeah.
The cries to give McDaniel more time. I get he's young. I understand all that, but he knew, and I've said this, he knew what he was getting into when he came here. This was not a rebuild. The rebuild was for the other was for Flores. Flores was in the rebuild, and he just didn't work.
Flores was in a D build. They were pissed at him for winning 5 games.
Flores, they wanted to lose. Like that wasn't what McDaniel came into. McDaniel came into them spending money to win now, and they're going backwards. They went to the playoffs 2 years in a row and lost in the playoffs. They're now year 3, and they're not going to be in the playoffs. So, okay, what are you keeping him for? Is it all his fault? No, it's mostly on Greer, to be honest, to me. But he is the coach, and they're not improving. So you're keeping him just to keep him, like you did with Philbin, like you did with Gase, like you did with Sperano. Like they always give the guy one more year to watch it go nowhere. Okay, why not cut bait now? To me, if you're going to bring in a new GM, let that GM pick their coach. This fucking game that they play where the coach, and then they get a new GM, and then they get the GM. They have the GM, and then they get a new coach. It's like, bring them in tandem. Let them be one fucking unit. And
you've been implying, though, Lubie, all season that McDaniel is largely responsible for the personnel. Well, his influence with Greer is over, the majority rule is going to McDaniel, or whatever his opinion is, and that he's making a lot of these decisions. They're just not. We always said this: if you're going to be bad, be exciting, and we saw some of those elements being infused into the offense. I mean, they were a high wire act, and you felt that they were always dangerous. You just don't feel that they're dangerous anymore. That's part of it. I mean, that's been subdued significantly, and to the point where the 12 points in a game against Houston's defense pretty much snuffed out any level of excitement you could have had for this team, and they don't scare you, which they did in the last couple of seasons. I don't know about McDaniel. He looks unimposing on the sideline when things are going wrong. Is that a fair statement, Lubie? That when you look over on the sideline, you see certain coaches. I guess a lot of these guys. I don't know that they show indifference. That certainly isn't the case. But when you saw Lombardi on the sideline, or some of these old school guys, George Allen or Shula, you thought, my God, this guy is, he's going to pull it off somehow. And you don't feel that way with McDaniel. You feel like he's almost resigned to, well, it's not going like it's supposed to. We'll fucking do something about it. Am I crazy there? It's easy to point fingers, but and certainly whatever responsibility for this 6-8 season has to be spread around quite a bit. Tyreek Hill not putting up the numbers that he was. I blame that on the Miami-Dade cops. Yeah. The rest of it, offensive line has always been a problem. I mean, that would be. It's not like Chris Greer is alone though in being incapable of assembling an offensive line that can hold together. I mean, look at the Bengals and Joe Burrow. They put up 35 points a game, and they still are always threatened and always in tight ball games. So, although yesterday wasn't the case, that was my easy win of the day, Lubie. Cincinnati laying 5 over the Titans, who are now 4-10 against the spread. So, ended up in a pretty favorable position there. The Titans scored on the last second. It's funny too because it struck me they didn't kick the extra point there. With gambling now, do you have to kind of go ahead and concede that if an extra point is important? Time had run out. Did you catch this? They scored with no time left on the clock. Will Levis, was he still in the game? I think so. Throws a touchdown pass. No time left on the clock in the Titans game to put them within 10. So if the spread was 9.5, they didn't kick the extra point because time had run out and it was inconsequential. But it would have been consequential if it was a spread beater. Would that be something that you see the NFL have to take a look at? I mean, think about that. A lot of money riding on these things, and especially now where I've spoken about this a lot. I used to think, how fucking lame is this guy? Where they would run up to you at the track and show you the losing tickets. Yeah, oh God, I left out the 4, or I would have had the Super. It's like, yeah, but you left out the 4. You got shit. Throw the tickets in the garbage and get the fuck out of my face. But for some reason, Lubie, and now the new thing is everybody goes to their phone and says, look at this. And I had 9 out of 10. and everybody's showing you parlays that they've bet on the Hard Rock app or whatever app that they're using to put their wagers in. And for some reason, I'm actually fascinated by it.
Oh, no, because, well, look, the Dolphins last week, they went in overtime. They don't kick the extra point. What was the spread? 6. Why didn't they kick?
They never do that in overtime.
Yeah,
I'm talking about as time expires.
Yeah, but that's the same thing, right? Like time expires, you don't need to do the play, but the spread depends on it. Same thing in overtime.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
Not a touchdown. Why can't you get your extra point in a touchdown? Like,
imagine that. People, there's going to be a class action lawsuit, which we already said is useless. We had that clip planned for a couple of weeks. Maybe that was just to emphasize the point that you're fucked. A million ways to get fucked.
No, but that's the thing is like gambling is now literally integrated into it, legal, and a sponsor. Yes. So, and they've always worried about protecting gamblers, even before when they weren't allowed to say the word gambler. Like, how do you not adjust for that? Like, there's a lot of money that falls in on those plays. They earned their point, right? Like, why? It should be their choice if they want. Now, if they choose to not kick it because they don't want to take a chance, then that's their choice. Yeah. But if they're open to kicking it, it should just be walking the field.
How much scrutiny would that open things up to? If they said, okay, it's a team's choice whether or not they want to kick the extra point, and the coach is looking, never mind the analytics. What was the spread? 5 hook? No, we're not going to do it. What a fucking world this is, right? We get Donald Trump coming in as president. People are actually thinking that this is going to work. That's the funny part.
Who's still thinking that? Because he's literally walked back everything. The only 2 things he talked about, he's already walked back both. He's not even in office yet.
I mean, naturally, I'm only concerned about myself and my own well-being, and forget the rest of the country. But this talk about Social Security and Medicare is a little bit frightening, is it not, Louis? You're getting totally screwed. I mean, you paid into the system for what, the last 15 years or so?
I started working when I was like 13, 14. And
okay, yeah, me too. I mean, I was working at 14. I was paying into the system.
Yeah, I paid into it in
60 years of paying in, pretty much. 59 years.
Get yours, and like my parents will get theirs. Thank God. I don't think I'm gonna get it.
You think it's going to be the cutoff that if you're grandfathered in, you're still getting it?
I don't think
no reductions or anything. I mean, because I desperately depend on Medicare. Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing. Look, they always want to take away money from things that work instead of the fucking billionaires. It's like, no, you can just take it away from the billionaires. Like, they're not going to feel it. It's okay. Like, you can do that. It's not against.
I read an article by a very intelligent person that I knew in high school, young woman who was actually working in this not the Trump administration, but she was working with the Social Security and Medicare administration in a financial advisory capacity. She spelled it out pretty well, what needs to happen. And if these billionaires were paying anywhere near a portion of the tax that they normally would be mandated to commit to, then there would be no problem funding this.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
It's because the salaries really haven't escalated that much for a lot of people. Maybe they did in the NFL, the NBA, and all the sports scenes, and you have these influencers making zillions of dollars like Jake Paul. But the average schmuck salary hasn't gone up as much as it needs to support the system. Bingo. And it was kind of interesting. But, okay, so you think I'm grandfathered in, Libby?
Yeah, I think you guys will be fine. I haven't heard it's just going to affect everyone else, which is a lot of people.
Well, and it would be horrible too, because let's face it. I mean, for a total misdiagnosis early this year, January when I was stuck in Holy Cross Hospital there with Jim Sarney a couple of floors down. I can't believe how loud Sarney was playing his music when he was throwing those orgies. He supposedly has like a bad back. It's like he's getting laid by 14 beautiful nurses. I applaud Jim Sarney for that. The rest of the stuff, some of the stuff he sends us is a little bit sugar. Right? You're in the middle of watching an NFL game where everything is contingent on a guy nailing a 50-yard field goal with no time left on the clock. And he's like, "Are you watching the women's volleyball tournament?" It's like, "No, Jim, I'm not." But he was wild in that hospital. But think about what that would have set me back, Louis. I would be completely wiped out financially were it not for Medicare. If I had just regular health insurance, just paying whatever the co-payment would have been or the deductibles, and that had to be what's 5 days in a hospital with
good.
multiple doctors coming by,
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
thousands
I
probably.
mean, a lot of the time, if you have
Probably close to a deuce. No, Andy would know.
yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, look, a lot of the
I
time,
never saw a bill, not one. So that was
that's
good. Yeah, thank you, Medicare. So let's keep that intact, Libby, because that's when you need it, right? I mean, I'd never been in a hospital before till I was like 70. What was I? 72 at the time.
Yeah, it was this year.
So I mean, this is essential. So if they strip the public of that, which I mean, look, this JFK guy with his no polio vaccine. What the?
Oh, I love the polio one. Polio, like
Polio.
there are vaccines that have no negatives that have literally eliminated diseases and viruses.
When I was a kid, it was scary, the whole issue of polio, right? It really was. You wanted the vaccine, and they used to give it to you in a little sugar cube, right? It was one of those things.
Okay.
And you got the little cup like you were in Cuckoo's Nest, where they put the medication in the little cup. And you're like, I ain't take. What is that? I'm not taking that. Just take it.
Ratchet.
But who wants that to come back? What the hell? You want every kid in a wheelchair or maybe potentially dead at the age of 12? I mean, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Nothing. There's no actual logical something about aluminum, which is not a real thing. There's nothing, no need for measles, shingles, or polio to affect human beings. We have things that would just eliminate them without any negative. Nothing.
What do you think? I don't want to dwell on the medical issues here because I mean it's a good way to stay away from trashing the Dolphins. And do we have any answers? That would literally be the question of the day, Mike Lubie Lubitz.
I thought
you or I or anybody else, do we have any real tangible answers as to what the situation needs to become? Let's put it that way. New GM, yes, but they haven't been great at picking general managers.
No, I get that part is starting over again doesn't mean it'll work. It hasn't worked at all for the Dolphins. We got to a place where we're now hovering around 9-8, 10-7. That's where, and with Flores, it was the same fucking thing. 8-8, 9-7. Like that's been the Dolphins.
Very pedestrian record.
Decades.
I mean, it's like exciting.
So I just making changes doesn't mean it'll work because it hasn't. I just keeping it isn't working either. So I don't know. I don't know what the fuck you do. Look, my dad said it, and it's what we've talked about. And I don't think he's actually bad. I think he wants to win. But Stephen Ross is just it doesn't work with him. It's just
Ross is brilliant though with his operation of the team in the sense that I believe he just sold off or is about to sell off a 10% share in his whole operation, sports operation. And that's going to fuel all kinds of new developments, I think, also. But what else can he possibly do? I mean, he puts his money into the Dolphins. He started this whole thing, which I think it's asinine, the whole Grand Prix fascination. Not the most exciting sport to me. I mean, it just seems like an occasion for filthy rich people to fly private jets into Miami, party on the South Beach, and then drink a bunch of champagne while they watch a race that doesn't look any more exciting than the 4th at Yonkers on a Tuesday night in the cold. And then the tennis thing, I couldn't be happier. It's not ideal. It's not as romantic as the whole Key Biscayne thing was. You were down on Key Biscayne with me at least once that I remember. And
I was in a Grand Slam. No, I felt like you were like in
like you went to the tropics somewhere in some exotic island.
That was amazing.
Which we are in the tropics, but I mean, it was like you had traveled to a new geographical destination that was kind of secluded, and the atmosphere was absolutely brilliant. And then you're watching the greatest tennis players in the world, all of them line up here and play, and play their eyeballs out for you with a tremendous view of almost every match. I mean, even if you were in the stadium, it wasn't too bad, but all of the side courts were great. Now it's not quite like that because it's like all of a sudden it's the asphalt jungle surroundings at the tennis tournament here. I haven't enjoyed it as much, even though essentially it's the same thing. But is it better than not having it at all? By
Have it.
far, yes,
Exactly. We still have it here. Exactly. And it's
yes.
still held in high esteem.
Holy Butch Buckholz! I mean, that was a brilliant concept this guy came up with, and I couldn't be happier than to see these top-notch tennis players come here right after they're out in Palm Springs and put on a tournament of that caliber, right? With nobody misses it, really. I mean, you rarely hear somebody say, "Fuck that! I ain't playing Miami." What a dump! So yeah, he's done brilliant things. Seems like what is it? Is it just the advisory group that he has? I mean, this happens where you have an owner that essentially you would think is absolutely ideal from a fan standpoint. Mickey Arison is one of those guys, although the Mick has made very prudent decisions, the most important of which, of course, was when he decided he was going to bring in Pat Riley as
Yes.
coach and then
He's
gave him this kind of unlimited authority over the franchise. And look, you may not love what they're doing all the time. You do get snookered in sports sometimes where you're stuck with the wrong guys. It's very hard to undo some of these mistakes. But if anybody's able to shift and adjust, it's Pat Riley. Maybe they should make him the GM of the Dolphins.
no, but look, that was the thing is they went all in
Personnel
with
is personnel,
Riley.
isn't it?
They went all in with O'Reilly, and then he put together a really good brain trust. Like they are considered one of the best front offices in the NBA. And the reality is, like, Riley's not doing that much these days. Riley's in his mid-70s. Like it's Spoelstra, it's
Well, he's 80
Ellisberg.
years old.
Okay, he's 80. It's
80.
Spoelstra, it's Ellisberg, and there's like a couple other guys that are highly involved in the front office. Riley, I'm sure, has final say, but Riley's not. A lot of the stuff
I think he is involved, though. I just did an interview for that conversation show with Eric Reed about a week ago.
Yeah.
He implies that Riley is not distanced himself at all from the role that he's playing.
He's okay. So he's still the main dude. Like I find that hard to believe.
He is the guy, man.
Scouting and doing because he used to do a lot of that. Is he really going around? And
yeah, I don't think he's going on the road to look at.
He used to do a lot of that, and I want because I know he still does a little bit of it when they're in Vegas. When I'm not saying he's not involved at all for an 80-year-old. I'm sure he's a lot more involved than many 8-year-olds.
Eric implied that he is right on top of his game.
So
He's very much involved in what he's doing and what the Heat are doing, and nothing gets by him. That he's razor sharp. He does. I mean, he doesn't. He's not as public as he used to be. That's a big difference.
That's true. I just look.
So,
They got
so we don't stay in touch with him like we used to, and you would listen and be spellbound by everything he said. When was the last time you heard an interview with Chris Greer where we outlined anything of any definition?
He does at the beginning of the year. He does a thing, and no, they don't even play clips from it because they already sort of admit that he's useless. Like that's the thing. Like Arison went and got Riley, and Riley put together.
You think he's a Rooney Rule plant? I mean, is that what you're saying?
He's just not good. I don't understand any. Like, what are the successes? Because they used to, like the Dolphin fans that wanted to give Chris Greer praise would point to like 6 guys, and all of them are busts. Like Phillips is a talent, but you have to call him a bust. He was a mid-first round pick that hasn't finished 1 year. Bradley Chubb, a trade you gave a ton for. He hasn't played a half a year with the Miami Dolphins, and now he's missed this entire year. No one knows what the fuck's going on with him. Like Javon Holland was supposedly this great draft pick.
You're saying Greer's fascination with crippled players probably.
Yes, every guy's an injury-prone guy, or they just don't consistently hit their potential. And the thing is, McDaniel has a lot of promise, but he leaves a lot to be desired. Like that's all on Ross. Like Ross spends money, he stays out of the way, he does all the right things, but he's not good at hiring management, and that's everything. Like the Detroit Lions are where they are now because they put a really good GM out there, and that GM hired a coach and hired an offensive coordinator and hired a defensive coordinator, and it's made the Lions one of the best teams in football. Will they win it all? I don't know. Like yesterday was a disaster for the Lions, but like they are in the mix. The Dolphins, even the last years when they had those runs where they were the number 1 team in football, like by the end of the season, they weren't. By the end of the season, they had fallen apart. By the end of the season, you could see major cracks in the foundation. Like that's the management. And Ross has never been good at putting that together. Is it all his fault? No, he's trying. He spends money. He stays out of the way.
Yeah, I have no fault with Ross outside of the fact that maybe he's getting poor advice from people. That could be. Jerry Jones is his own advisor, and he's looking at a total brick over the last several years. I mean, talent to accomplishment, you would have to say the Cowboys are a devout failure, no?
Yes.
And then what happens is, I see, this is the thing, the lingering stench is one of the factors that you have to deal with, because this year is catastrophic in the sense that you are correct. I believe it's fair to say that the Dolphins have regressed from what they were last year.
Yeah.
And instead of taking a step forward, they've probably bounced off the wall and taken 2 steps backwards. And so if you now have limited your options as to what you can do to make amends for that, you're probably stuck, I would think, in a downward cycle. And then you need somebody really shrewd to come in here and patch it up. And is that guy available? And
He's like a
is it somebody
Zito.
they retire? Yeah.
He's like a fucking Zito, like Bill Zito.
Yes, there you
In
go.
the
That was a
Panthers-
perfect example. Way to
the
go,
Panthers
Luke.
were in this place. Panthers actually got into a place where they were okay. They
Yeah.
got into a place where the young talent, a lot of the Dolphins, remember, young talent, got to a place where they were competing and they weren't out by November, as you would joke every year.
Yeah.
Mathematically eliminated by November.
Mathematically eliminated was a
They were
great.
fun. They were cool. They were getting into the playoffs, which for that organization was a fucking win, but they weren't winning in the playoffs. And that's where the Dolphins are now, right? Like, Greer's done a good enough job to turn them from being a 4-win team to 9 to 10 wins every year. That's fine, but that's not the goal. The goal is to win a goddamn championship, or at least have whispers and
Be
hope.
significant, sure.
And that's not where they are. And they're going backwards. Like, it's just clear they're going backwards. And Scoop said this to us not the last time, but 2 times ago. Like, when they were in the middle of being a disaster before they had the win streak, these are the guys that got you here. Why would you assume these are guys that are going to fix it? Like, Greer got you here.
Fair
Why
statement.
would you expect him to fix it? And that's my
Yeah.
issue.
He would have to have some dose of monumental luck, I think. Much like the bettors that were trying to cash on Terabella. Monumental luck to overcome this. All right, we'll explore this some more. Always fun to do Dolphin Crying Tale on a Monday. Although I don't know that people are crying. I think a lot of them were resigned to the idea that this just wasn't working and it was destined to go south. You had speculated they were in a good position to win their last 5 games. And that has not been the case. They got very lucky to beat the Jets and then lose this one, looking bad in the process. So you do have 3 games left. Jets, Browns, and 49ers. 49ers coming up next. 49ers have been badly compromised and impeded by injury, most obviously in McCaffrey. And Brock Purdy has looked more like Mr. Irrelevant than he did some superstar that everybody was touting deserved a max contract for the extension. I'm sure the 49ers feel very fortunate that they didn't go ahead and extend that right now, because he seems to be a very pedestrian quarterback at this point. And your man Deebo Samuel, unfortunately, is not having the kind of season. That guy was spectacular in the last several years.
Yeah. It's falling apart.
Falling apart at the seams. So are we, Louie. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and this will be a little bit of an abridged edition of the Defo show, because Lubie has you're going to be active.
I got to get down to the fucking grandpa's.
Nothing wrong. Once you're there, I mean, I'm sure you'll feel pretty good about it. But
I love it. It's just I have to get down there and run like a tight.
Yeah, well, a place can make a cheese omelet seem like it should come under a chafing.
They do a great job. Yeah, they do a great job.
Things like it's pheasant under glass. That's spectacular. I gotta go for a really good breakfast. It's a shame I can't make it. All right, so we'll be back with more. We have about another 10 minutes to go here of content on the program. If you could consider this content, although I think if Chris Greer was critiquing this show, he would say that maybe some substance abuse, but lacking substance. All right, we'll be back with more in a moment. Now that
The time.
speaking of substance abuse, it's 8:37.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305 453 9.
You can't fake caring. Women can sense this immediately. You don't really care. You didn't really want to do any of this.
We now return to the Defo Show.
So true. I mean, but if you're taking relationship advice from me, like we were saying, you're fucked. I had a nice reversal yesterday. I was handed in my personal bookmaking venture with my friend Francesco. I was handed the Jets -3.5, which looked like a virtual impossibility. And then the Jets, is it Dillingham, the guy from Arizona State? Dillingham?
Yeah, Kenny Dillingham, former Florida State offensive coordinator. Yep.
Remember we were screaming about the fact that he got cute there when he had a chance to ice the ball game. There was very little time left in the game.
He did too much math.
But he could have gotten up 2 scores at that point. If he just ran the ball into the end zone, and instead he does this Meshuggah thing where he has the quarterback running backwards, and they throw a flag, and the next thing you know, what was that, BYU that he was playing?
Yeah.
They ended up with the ball at the 50-yard line, and nearly they did complete the essentials of a Hail Mary, except for the fact that the guy was not in the end zone, which I guess would be the most essential part. But they still completed a 50-yard pass on the play, and the guy could have just as easily fallen backwards and scored. And this guy would have cost his entire team the game and a chance to go to the college football playoffs. Don't get cute.
Yes.
But the Jets now were in a situation, and the analysis was by the color commentator. Well, what they could have done. See, I don't want the win to depend on a field goal kicker because too many things can go wrong.
Yep.
So the Jets somehow found themselves in a dead heat with Jacksonville, 25-all. Jacksonville kicked a late field goal with about a minute and change to go in the game and tied the ball game up at 25 after the Jets had taken the lead. Now, at 25-22, I'm fucked, right? Because I'm laying 3 in a hook in the ball game. And so I'm thinking, geez, how the hell do you get out of this, Lubie? I mean, you do all the different mathematical permutations, and you're thinking to yourself, there's really no way to win. Except you now have to root for the other team to tie the game. So there's pressure on the Jets to score. And sure enough, they do. And the Jets get the ball. Devontae Adams, who had an incredible game.
Nuts.
And the other thing that was working was this whole narrative about Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, and how they had all this acrimony and a giant divide, and the locker room was lost. Sal Palantonio's in there with the teeth that look like Secretariat. We like Sal, though. I mean, but he has big teeth.
Yeah, big teeth, yes.
Teeth that you would be jealous of, no matter who. Mine are falling out. So, I mean, thank God for Medicare. I found a way to circumvent the system and possibly get them to pay for a very expensive dental experience I'm about to go through. But nonetheless, there you go again, me babbling about Medicare. That's what happens when you're 73 years old. I'm thinking about these things as being crucial. But so the Jets get the ball back, and Devontae Adams makes a great play. He dodges a tackler along the sidelines, runs down to like the 1-yard line. And now there's about a minute and 10 seconds to go in the game, dead heat. And you're thinking, what are the Jets going to do? Now, the logical thing might have been, and I totally disagree with this, and especially since I needed them to score the touchdown, might have been, and some people strategically would have said, take a knee 3 times, make the other team use its timeouts. I think they had 2, and then you would have given them the ball back down a field goal with about 30 seconds to go. And I'm thinking that is outright and utter stupidity. Algie Ricardo was rolling over in his fucking grave. Was he not? Thinking, why would you do that when you could just run the ball in on the very first play, which they did? Thank you very much. Ulbrich, who is not, I remember Jason Cole told us he was not the sharpest knife in the drawer as a possible game day coach, in spite of the fact that Robert Saleh wasn't highly regarded in that category either. But Saleh was Lombardi compared to this guy so far from what we've seen. And so they run it right in, and there's about a minute and 8 to go. With Jacksonville having 2 timeouts, but now the Jets are up 7, and they're going to cover. So you would then force Jacksonville to go all the way with their 2 timeouts. It's not like they have an offense that scares the hell out of you. And they're working with a backup quarterback, Mac Jones, because Trevor Lawrence has been out. Is he? I would imagine he's out for the season, or is he going to play again? I'm not sure. You got a team that's like 3-11.
I mean, I wouldn't play. Yeah, I wouldn't play him.
Yeah. So you put them in a situation where the bettors who had the Jets, in this case, this was by force, although I probably would have taken the Jets over Jacksonville after Jacksonville's very, very lackluster 10-6 win over the Titans the previous week.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a game and the Jets being favored.
This offense is waking up. I mean, they did move the ball on the Dolphins. Like, it's not like the Jets are sort of figuring it out a little bit.
Maybe so, yeah. But I mean, it turned out to be very fortunate for me and the Jets backers that they went ahead and knocked that in. And then afterwards, I don't know who was doing the color analysis on the game. I would imagine this was like the Z team that was broadcasting for the network. Whoever was on the color analysis side of it started speculating that they might have been better off doing it the other way. And I thought, you're an asshole. And obviously you had no money on the Jets because I think, look, you put them in a much more compromising position by scoring that touchdown. Would you agree with that, Lubie?
Yeah, get the touchdown. I hate when they do
go
that.
maybe 40 yards to kick a game-tying field goal.
I don't trust field goal kickers. Look at the Bills kicker.
Anybody can miss. Tyler Bass, yeah.
Something yarder. Like, I just don't. I'm weird about kickers. Like, I know Sanders right now is in some weird fucking zone, but then he's missed 2 extra points in the last 2 weeks. Like,
yes.
To me, if you can get a touchdown, I get it. I get it. Fumbles and interceptions. Believe me, they're scary fucking things. We've seen them affect South Florida teams for years. I still would rather have a touchdown lead because we're seeing teams move the ball down the field very quickly in weird ass circumstances. So anything over 30 seconds or more, teams are able to get down the field in that amount of time. Like, I just get a touchdown, take the touchdown. And then you know what? If they do move it down the field, at worst, you have a tie sitting there.
A rule that desperately needs to be addressed is that business where if the ball rolls through the end zone, what is the purpose of that? If the offensive team fumbles or and the ball rolls through the end zone, it's not only not a score, it's not left at the 1, but it's a touchback and it goes to the other team. Yeah, this happened on 3 occasions yesterday. 2 times where the offensive team ended up losing the ball. And in the Patriots game, they recovered the ball at the very back of the end zone just before it rolled through. Now, it didn't do them any good because they suck, but nonetheless, I mean, that was one of their lone scores. I think they might have had 13 points in the game, something like that. But 2 times it happened in the Cincinnati Bengals game where the Bengals guy is cruising in, and it wasn't one of those deals where he flipped the ball in celebration. He just somehow lost the handle on the ball and went through the end zone, and they not only didn't get the score, which was originally called a touchdown, but they lost possession of the ball. And that was in the Tennessee Bengals game. And it also happened in the Denver Broncos game against the Colts.
The Colts did it, yeah.
Where the Colts did it. Is that not, I mean, excessively punitive for that kind of mistake, Lubie? I mean, please.
They want guys to
that? Did that have to do with Kenny the Snake Stabler? No, that was where you can't advance the fumble like that.
They don't want guys showboating. So it's like, keep the ball through the end zone, or if you lose it, you lose it.
I'm not sure that rule was devised because of showboating. I mean, that seems like it's been on the books for a while. We'll have to research that. If the show was better researched, it would be a really good show.
There you go.
All right, I know you have to run here, Lubie, so we're going to get out of here a little bit early today. Well, we'll do it again tomorrow. And who is it? Is it Paul Mercurio?
Paul Mercurio.
He's going to join us?
In the Northeast. Yeah, he's going to be on with this video tomorrow morning at 8:15. He has a one-man show. He's still working with the Late Show, but he has a one-man show that he's been doing for off and on for like 2-3 years before COVID, and now the last year or so after COVID. And he's literally it's doing really well in the Northeast, and now he's taking it on the road. And he's going to be at the Broward convention, not Broward, in Broward, in January. So he's going to come with us. No, the one in downtown Fort Lauderdale. I don't forget what the fuck it's
Center for the Performing Arts.
Broward Center for the Performing Arts. He's doing his one-man show there in January. So he's going to come on with us and talk about that, and we'll talk so many other things. He's a funny guy. He loves sports. So.
All right. Sounds good. All right. I'll let you run, Lubie, and we'll join you again tomorrow at 8 o'clock. You'll be out at Grandpa's. Now, have a very hearty breakfast. Those lox and what? Lox and tomatoes? Is that what you do? Do you do the onion with that?
I don't do onion because I don't like raw onion, but
I'll do raw onion, start your day, and then you go kiss a
Kiss the wife, exactly.
All right, well, have fun there, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Catch you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
You think the people feel ripped off today? It's 8:48.
Let's go to eat a damn snack. Look what they done to my soul.